Can you tell me about the history of the pond?
We've got various old maps of the village. The oldest map we've got is about 1790 something or other, and it doesn't look as if the pond's shown there. But the next map is 1840, and there definitely was a pond there. And what happened in between was that the old mill that used to be on that site was taken down, and the mill that you can see now if you go to the village was put up in about 1812, I think. And my guess, milling is very, very technical, but my guess is that the old mill had something called an undershot wheel, which means that the water went under the wheel and drove it that way. And the new mill had something which was much better for milling, which was an overshot mill, where you have water going down a sort of waterfall, as it were, around the wheel. But to do that, you've got to have a head of water, and that means having a pond. So I think at that time they probably dammed the stream and gave the mill the extra water that it needed to work. But that's only a guess. But certainly the pond's been there ever since then.
So was the pond man-made at the start then?
Yes, it certainly was, yes. They would have had to build a wall at one end with all sorts of fancy technical things like sluice gates so that they could control the amount of water in the pond and how much water was coming down the stream to the mill. And they would have had to line the bottom of the pond with clay so that the water didn't seep out. And that's had to be redone at least once since it was put there originally.
How important is the pond to the village?
It is the heart of the village, really. When people come and visit Sutton Poyntz, it's the pond and the pond area that they really come to look at. And it's a lovely place. It's got a very nice pub sitting right next to it. It's got willow trees, which at this time of the year are just a fantastic sort of luminous green colour. It's got the ducks and the moorhens, and it's got the water reeds and things, and shallow bits where young children can paddle. And it's lovely.
Sounds really nice. Going back to what you said about the animals, what kind of wildlife inhabits the pond and how has that changed over the years?
Ducks and moorhens, lots of those. And there are things like water voles and things like that. There is a nice little story about the duck population, as it were, because in about 1970 there were lots of complaints from people living in the village that the pond was drying up in the summer. And as a result of that, we didn't get any ducks there. They might have come sort of visiting in the winter, but they never actually stayed when the pond dried up. And there was a really quite ridiculous solution that they came up with at the time, which was that Weymouth Borough installed a tap with a pipe connected to the water supply, so that when the pond was drying up, they could turn the tap on to fill the pond with water, which meant that the water people were pumping the water out of the stream so that it could go a few yards through their pipe, down to the tap and into the pond again. How mad is that?
Right, I was going to ask you about the weather and whether that affects the pond, but I think you did answer that for me then. So, why do you really love the pond?
I like seeing the people enjoying it there, and I do like seeing the wildlife. And I think the moorhens are really rather sweet. But what I particularly like is seeing the swallows flying over the pond and catching insects, or even in full flight, dipping down just above the water to pick up a mouthful of water to drink. It's just fantastic, I think.
That sounds really nice. Thank you.